А вже все, трансляція працює, так? А вже ж. Добре. Доброго.
Good afternoon to all those who watch our live and who will see us on stream. I'm happy to welcome you here in the UCMC on February 21st. 2022, and tomorrow we'll have February 22 of 2022, and keeping that in mind, today we are going to hear the voices of prominent Ukrainian diplomats. Of course, today we do not see all of those prominent diplomats who we would like to invite, but nevertheless, today we have top Ukrainian diplomats and top experts with whom today we will discuss the escalation on the Ukrainian borders. I am Berezovets. I'm very grateful to Mr. Valery for invitation, and now I'm going to present the participants of our panel discussion. From the very beginning, I have to warn you that I am very tough moderator. I will allow you to speak for only 5 minutes, and 1 minute prior to the expending of your time, I will warn you. I would like to make very short introductory speeches, and then we will continue a discussion, and I'm very pleased to give the floor to the co-founder, co-chairman of the UCMC board and ambassador of Ukraine to the United States in 2015-2019. Thank you, Taras. Thank you for your professional introduction. As you may know, UCMC very proactively responds to all the extreme moments in the new Ukrainian history, and that started back in 2015, and today we face an extreme challenge, one of those extreme challenges in our new history, and we today have Mr. Yegor Chernev, head of our delegation to the PA NATO, and Ms. Ivanna Klympush-Tsintsadze, who is chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on Ukraine's integration to the EU, Mr. Volodymyr Ohryzko, ex-Minister of the Foreign Affairs, and all these prominent experts had come together here, but because today we witness a moment where not only in the Munich conference, but also here in Kyiv, we would like to draw attention to the fact that today, not only the point of view of the presidential administration, of the parliament, and of the experts becomes very important. Yesterday's morning, we have heard an agreement that very soon the forum devoted to the European security should be gathered, and that statement was result as a result of the diplomatic effort of of France, and against that background, we witness that Russia has accumulated more than 150,000 troops along Ukrainian borders. Actually, that amounts to 75% of the most military capable forces of the Russian army, and thus is a huge accumulation of force. At the same time, we witness the increase in fighting, increase in challenge along the contact line in the east of Ukraine, and we today have heard that the Council of Federation, the lower chamber of Russian Parliament, has announced that they are going to have their special sitting today, and this might be a potential threat. And I won't be surprised that there will be just another attempt to make pressure upon Ukrainian authorities and to surrender positions, surrender some interests in a short-term perspective, or alternatively, we may witness the violent scenario. In my opinion, actually, that is what we are witnessing now, the violent scenario in the east of Ukraine, and Poland has warned its Polish citizens about the need to fled from that regions. That is, summing up, I would suggest to make certain steps and to demonstrate that Ukraine is absolutely ready to defend itself. Allocate more money for procurement of arms and strengthen supplies to Ukraine of defense weapons. Now there is a window of opportunity to shape the defense guarantees to Ukraine. That's going to be a very short period and very critical period for Ukraine. Thank you, Your Excellency Ambassador, for precious contribution to our discussion, and I'm pleased to give the floor to Ms. Ivanna Klympush-Tsintsadze, a Member of Parliament and Chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on Ukraine's European Integration and the Vice Prime Minister in the former government. Thank you for this discussion, topical discussion today. I believe that it is the right moment to listen to the rational advice of all those who are experienced in international expertise. Today I participated in the Conciliation Council in the Parliament, and the joint session devoted to the analysis of current situation is postponed till Thursday. I believe that this is irresponsible from the parliamentary point of view. Last week in Munich, many colleagues from the Western countries insisted that they've got unprecedented unity in supporting Ukraine in counteraction to the Russian aggression. But in my opinion, this joint basis for the unity is not that deep as it seems at a first glance, and the United States disclosing a lot of information about the data of intelligence are aiming to prevent the violent scenario. On the other hand, they are trying to mobilize the unity among the Western allies. Against this background, the Russian Federation makes its own steps aimed at breaking that unity which is being built today. Mr. Challer rightly mentioned possible scenario, and we have heard that alongside with the Council of Federation, the Defense Council in Russia is going to have the meeting today, and I expect that by the end of the day, we will see some elements of the decision which Putin had already made about further attack upon Ukraine. Obviously, this attack could be done not exclusively by military force, but also with the aid of psychological methods when they actually expel Ukrainian population, pretending that this is evacuation of civil citizens to the more secure places, and then they may pretend and disguise the attacks upon Ukrainian attacks on Russian Federation, and I believe that the objective of our today's behavior should be to demonstrate that we are capable to repeal and the objectives of both the legislative and the executive powers should be aimed at this. Unfortunately, I do not see any announced special session of the Security and Defense Council, which should build a strategy how to act on the situation and communicate the strategy to the general population of Ukraine. I believe that together we may achieve this very important outcome, that is to produce a clear message how we're going to repeal the Russian aggression. On the other hand, today the whole world is observing Ukraine and trying to see whether Ukraine is capable to repeal the Russian attack, and whether Ukraine is, and upon that capacity, they will make decision about their further support to Ukraine. Thank you, and now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Yegor Chernev, Member of Parliament and head of the Ukrainian permanent delegation in the NATO PA. Thank you for this opportunity. I can assure you that Ukrainian government would never agree to surrender any positions related to the Ukrainian borders, and we clearly understand that we are now in the center of psychological pressure from the side of Kremlin, and actually they are following their traditional tactics to escalate, to force the Western partners to sit around the negotiations table. Then they raise stakes at the negotiations table, and then the next step, the Russians keep saying we cannot negotiate with these people. They are we cannot negotiate with them, and then further to escalate. And as you have seen that in the breaking Russian news, that they had shown that allegedly Ukraine has shelled some pre-border settlement. They have invited troops or some weaponry from the Russian Federation. As my colleagues rightly mentioned, tomorrow they plan to have sessions of the Council of Federation and the Defense Council. These are all ways of pressure upon Ukraine and upon Western allies. And I would like to assure you that neither Ukraine nor Western world will surrender because we never would allow to ourselves to reject from the integration to the European integration course, and we clearly understand that this step could only promote occupation and give the beginning to the Russian Federation's pretext of occupying Ukrainian territory. That's why we would not surrender our course at the integration to the EU and NATO. At the same time, I would like to assure you that every day we get new supplies of weapons, equipment from our Western partners. Not all of those supplies are covered in mass media. We are very grateful to the partners who supply this equipment, and we continue to strengthen our territorial defense forces. We had established very good exchange of information and data with our Western partners. And I should say that we do everything possible, contribute every effort to strengthening the defense capacity, to strengthening our diplomatic capacity. Of course, all this is the exercise of muscle, exercise of force, but we should be aware that one of the possible scenarios is to recognize the LNDPR, then supplies of new weaponry like military aviation and artillery complexes, and with further attempt to liberate, so to say, LDPR. And the best protection against this scenario is our strong defense along the contact line. Thank you, Yegor. And now I'm pleased to give the floor to Mr. Ohryzko, leader of the Russia Study Center and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine in 27-29. Thank you for this opportunity of deep expert discussion about the current events, and these days I observe how many people try to produce expert opinion without having sufficient expertise. Looking at the situation in Russia, we can come to conclusion that they try to raise the degree, to raise the temperature as high as possible. My expectation is that these tactics would be used for a rather long period of time, and this will take the nature of waves coming one after another, and the length of the time period would depend on the capacity of Putin to keep 150,000 troops on the border, and on what would be the behavior of the West allies. As of today, our Western allies do not understand that unless Putin feels the grave consequences of what would happen, he would never stop. Unfortunately, neither Ms. von der Leyen nor our Western partners understand this very fact, although they have understood what the Russian Federation is, and this is good. That is, I believe that the Putin's tactic, we are ready to declare the war today and postpone it tomorrow, would continue for a rather long period of time. Is there anything possible in positive in this situation? I agree with Mr. Charlie that at this very moment, Ukraine has to pose a very sharp question about its own defense. Living at the border with a country which has a lot of military forces, which is very powerful, which has huge army. They keep saying that they are endangered and threatened by the neighbors, and at this at this very moment, we have to present to our Western partners the idea that this is not Ukrainian crisis. This is the Russian crisis, and the guarantees should be given not to the aggressor country, but to all the potential victims of the aggressor, and in first turn to Ukraine. I believe this is a good chance, which would require the official authorities, experts, the parliament to work out very sound proposals to be offered to our Western partners. I believe that that possible summit between President Biden and President Putin would not mean that they will speak about Ukraine without Ukraine. State Secretary Blinken had said this definitely. What we need to keep calm and be ready to the maximum mobilization of the civil population. I've found that the territorial defense forces are ready to accept people with the age limitations up to 60 years. I believe that this is ageism, and this limits my wish to defend Ukraine. Thank you, Minister. And we have one more interesting panelist, Mr. Lubkivskyi, Director of the Kyiv Security Forum and Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs in 2014. Thank you. I've been following the situation very closely, and after that very bright opinions, I would come with a very brief statement. Never give up. We should not give up in this situation, and I would suggest that this very short conclusion should be written down in a result of our today's discussion, and I believe that I'm very happy about what I have heard from the servant of the people, party representative. Never give up. This is addressed in first turn to the Ukrainian authorities, to people in power, and to Ukrainian leadership. What are those three factors which had been restraining Putin till now? The first such restraint was that mobilization and consolidation of Ukrainian people, which happened in 2014 totally unexpectedly for Ukrainian authorities and for the Russian forces as well. The second restraint factor is our armed force, our army, which had accumulated enough capacity to stop the Russian army. And the third factor is the readiness of Ukrainian population. Yesterday we witnessed the Security Council in the United States chaired by President Biden. Today, the Defense Council in Moscow, led by President Putin, will happen. I would like to ask a question. Where is the sitting of the Ukrainian Defense Council, chaired by Ukrainian executive officials? And one more important remark. What we're witnessing today, it's not the informational game, neither from the Western allies side nor from Putin side. That's not a game launched by some conspiracy organization. This is a real threat which endangers and jeopardizes the future of Ukraine. That is, I would like to appeal to those people who still believe that this is just a maneuver. No, it's not. And the next statement, that our internal mobilization is hampered by some harmful statements like we could be independent, we are smart enough to fight without our Western partners, without any support, etc. Tomorrow, we expect to have a very tough day for Ukraine, and in the light of those two sittings of the two chambers of the Russian parliament, this brings in a possibility that Russia may approve very dangerous decisions, very dangerous for Ukraine. Let us hope that this will result in unity of Ukraine and the West. Let us also keep in mind that even in case the de-escalation in result of negotiations would happen, this would not immediately result in the decrease of tension. We should be prepared to extended and strong tension. Thank you for all those statements and for the appeals to Ukrainian authorities. So my question to Mr. Chernev, how would you respond? Why we do not see any Security and Defense Council sittings these days, and what the President of Ukraine is doing now? First of all, I would like to respond to what you said, that we believe that we are smart enough to stand alone, that we are prepared to fight alone. I disagree with you. We have reached a very high consolidation with our Western partners, the strongest during the last 30 years. And when we were in Munich and in Brussels with Ms. Klympush-Tsintsadze, we heard many times that we should start to act. If you expect that the Russian soldiers would cross Ukrainian borders near Kharkiv, and then you would start applying sanctions, then you would wait long, because Russia is playing into hybrid games and is raging hybrid wars. And in our opinion, you should apply some soft sanctions to show that you are ready to impose them one by one, to take initiative in the situation to force the Russian Federation to go to the negotiations. And next, my statement would be about the informational game and real threats. Our intelligence and reconnaissance suggest that the forces accumulated by Russia along the Ukrainian borders were not sufficient for a full-scale attack. They have not accumulated enough fuels. But as for the so-called LDPR, they have sufficient amount of diesel fuels to start an attack. The Defense Council took its session last week, and today both the headquarters, the Ministry of Defense, the President, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs work round the clock, and these days the Ministry of Culture and Information Policy will launch its round-the-clock center. The objective of this center will be to collect information and respond to fake information. So this is going to be the emergency response center, although we are quite familiar with the previous response. Thank you, Yegor. Mr. Lubkivskyi, what's your attitude towards the following events today? We saw the forum secure and wealthy communities of the future, where Mr. Kirill Tymoshenko had presented strategy of the infrastructure. I would not like to comment on such events. On the one hand, it is very important that the center on anti-fake center is opening today under the Ministry of Culture and Information, and I believe that such center had to be opened back in 2019, and in this context I would like to remind you that Ukrainian Crisis Media Center was one of those institutions which were established back in 2014 from the first days of the crisis which outbroke in February 2014, totally unexpectedly, and I was among those who applied to the founders. I would not like to criticize the authorities in this critical moment, but I have to draw attention to unacceptable things, unacceptable for us as experts and diplomats. I would like to draw attention to the rhetoric which is capable to demobilize people. And when the president says that it is a big secret for him what Putin wants, and we would like to suggest that Ukrainian authorities should draw lessons, learn lessons from what from the previous mistakes. Today, we do not have a political discussion, although all those issues are interconnected. I would encourage the experts today to discuss what could be done, not in the parliament, not in the government, but what could be done beyond that institutions. And the experts know that we have some weak points, weak issues with our armed forces, and this is the right moment to make steps and to fill in these gaps. For example, for the president to issue an order about mobilization of some groups of reservists, and we should stop. We should change this statement that there is no panic and that we keep calm. This should be emphasized via a special exercise to demonstrate that we are getting ready then with territorial defense. There are some issues between the municipal authorities and military authorities, and both these authorities, they have experienced military people, and they should stop quarreling and fighting. I visited some pre-border regions, both in the north and in the east, and I observed some actions of the local authorities. I understand that we have to modify the message, no panic. We have to modify it for the pre-border authorities. Even President Biden stated that this would be attack on Kyiv. And when I keep hearing the encouragements, top officials should not leave Kyiv, some members of parliament should not leave Kyiv, I do not see any problem. Just introduce martial law in some regions, and this will bring more clearness for people what they should do. And you have told that we witnessed a short pause, and now we expect to have either an outburst of Russian military activity or get ready. I would like to respond to your statement that you do not wish to criticize the authorities. I fully agree that we do not wish to criticize the power. We wish to assist the power in standing for Ukraine in organizing the best support and assistance in counteraction to the enemies. I would not like to question the importance of the presidential actions and his visit to the Munich conference. We would like to understand to which extent President Zelensky is ready to accept our assistance and how we can deliver this assistance to him. I fully agree with you that President's presidential visit to the Munich conference was right, and without it, it won't be possible to provide this statement which was made at the conference, and I am happy that the statement was translated in writing and disseminated, and it stirred up a lot of opinions, etc. But what we can do today, we can pose a sharp question that we need to build up a new security system in the Northern Atlantic. The basics of the security system in Northern Atlantic is now ruined by Russian Federation. It is ruined once and forever. They cannot expect to come back to the previous positions after all these Kremlin authorities had played their games. Whether we may expect to see better power in Kremlin, I'm not sure. And the major message as of today should be what to do with this new security system in the Northern Atlantic. What is the place of Russian Federation in it? And here we come to a sad reality. Not all the Western countries have understood what Russia is. There are some countries which believe that appeasement of Russia is the right way, and partially this could be based on the wrongful perception of Russia. On this may be fueled by corruption, but we have to think about consolidation of the West. The Russian position is quite clear: is to ruin everything, to oppose their country to the entire world. But we have to understand whether we are able to help the Western allies to understand the ways of consolidation. I believe we should offer today our assistance to Ukrainian power, to Ukrainian authorities, how to formulate properly Ukraine's vision, how to become more solidary, whether we will promote authoritarian regimes or we would stop them. I believe that today we as experts should try to produce a new plan, new approach to this today's reality. And what we like most is that President Zelensky rejected from his previous idea to look into the eyes of President Putin. Miss Klympush-Tsintsadze, let us come to more practical field, whether it would be helpful for Ukraine to establish new bodies, new institutions, which would comprise experienced experts, experienced politicians, just like we see today, which would be able to assist today's authorities and become a bridge between today's authorities and the West. Taras, you suggest non-standard, asymmetrical approaches to the threats which we're having today. Some months ago, we saw the statement of the president where he stated that it was only the president and two other people in the country who were involved into the formation of foreign policy. I would suggest the scenario which you described. Today at the Conciliation Council in Parliament, I emphasized that President never invited the leaders of the parliamentary factions to his office for discussion, and that I stated that today it is a right moment. There are many practical and very noticeable things. The territorial defense has to be formed, and this is actually a total quest for the volunteers who would like to enlist into the territorial defense. They have to produce 21 different documents to be allowed to become a member of the territorial defense. And my assumption is that it's unintentional barriers, that the authorities should get this feedback from broad public, should hear this from experts, that you should lower the barriers. And also we had seen the full process of transformation in perception of threats by Ukrainian authorities from October, when our Western partners started pointing out to this threat. And at that stage we rejected. Today we recognize that the threat is real, and I'm not sure whether we can prevent the full-scale intrusion. But today we hope that even if we are successful together with the Western partners in prevention of full-scale invasion, I believe that today we have to stop all the unimportant events like IT discussions or wealthy local communities. We have to think and rethink how we have to develop our defense. Even without full-scale invasion, we cannot be sure that there won't be any psychological or subversive operation, there won't be any subversive acts, etc. We may expect that Russia would intensify its subversive actions inside the country, the fifth column, etc. When my colleagues discussed in the insufficient capacity of Russia for full-scale invasion, we should go back to the beginning of the Second World War and should not apply this obsolete approach that today the warfare does not require human force exclusively. We we did not mention that we have issues with the air defense, with the marine defense, etc. That's why all sorts of aid, military aid provided by our partners, it is unable to resolve all the issues. I have never heard that Ukроборонпром never managed to launch the full scale of our defense enterprises. I would like to know whether the parliament can do something. Actually, this shows that some answers, they are just on the surface. I believe that Yegor would like to respond to your statements. I believe that once again we had stepped into the non-constructive path. Although I would like to hear what the former diplomats could offer to today's officials. The territorial defense law was passed last year. Why the territorial defense law was not passed earlier? You mentioned that the armed forces of Ukraine are not the priority, but I would like to remind you that 5.5% of the national budget are today allocated on the defense forces, and Ukроборонпром also works full scale, but you clearly understand that it takes a long time from the design to the production, and we continue corporatization of the Ukроборонпром, and for the first time in 30 years, we have made a review of Ukraine's production of defense weaponry, and the Parliamentary Committee on National Defense and Security has set the priorities for allocation of money and spending in this area. And that priorities are now being implemented, and so that's not true when you say that we waste money on other purposes and do not take defense and security as top priority. I believe that Taras has posed a good question whether the authorities are ready to listen and are ready to bring together the experts. That's the right question, but I am not very much confident in the capacity of today's people in power to accept what is advised to them. The problem is that the authorities quite often are blamed in mistakes in defense, and quite often the today's authorities disguise the fact that unserious approach taken by the president and the servant of the people party about the importance of security and defense of this country for more than 2 years. Now we observe the result of that. You cannot throw a stone into your own glass house. I heard the speech of the president at the Munich conference, and I saw several important statements which could be taken as a new initiatives, and I was stricken with the fact that those statements were just made without further development them into initiatives. I was a bit stricken with the statement of President Macron and the Russians about new architecture of defense. But I believe that the NATO-based security architecture is the best security architecture. So what Ukraine wishes in this situation, either to approach to the NATO defense structure, security structure, or to ignore it. We have to come back to the issue about the membership action plan, NATO membership action plan for Ukraine. Now about the vague statement about the Budapest memorandum. You may recollect that some time ago, the Budapest memorandum this was brought to the attention of broad public. I think it's like a joke, very much alike as to the joke, let Ukraine quit the United Nations today. Of course, it's nonsense and it's a joke. Then we should clearly state that we strongly oppose the prevention of Ukraine's accession to NATO. We disagree with the Ukraine's and explain our position as to the occupation. So here we have a lot of issues which should be an extension of the initiatives put forward by President Zelensky, just like President Biden during last 2 weeks, he made 5 speeches related to Ukraine, while President Zelensky made just 1 speech, although quite noticeable speech. each of us has his position, but today we are not individual experts, Lubkivskyi or Ohryzko, etc. Today, the main question is how to restore the territorial sovereignty. It was not a criticism on my side. Let us focus on the constructive position. That is what I asked about the Disinformation Counteraction Center. That center in the Ministry of Culture was established with the close involvement of the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center experts. We made an attempt to do that 6 months ago. There are some bureaucratic barriers, and at that time, in 2014, I've got this first experience. At that time, we provided a lot of support to the government, although we were the non-governmental organization. We have a huge resource here. We have a lot of addresses. We have huge audience abroad. We have 5 languages. We have the group for analysis and counteraction to the hybrid threats. So we are ready to offer all the support to you. And we are ready to revive this experience of cooperation with governmental structures from the previous periods. This was my first message, and what I cannot understand why you do not organize any meetings, any parliamentary meetings at the parliamentary level. It was security forum. Sorry, I will interfere. Many times we invited Mr. Verkhovna, head of your faction. The leadership of the Verkhovna Rada was invited many times to our Kyiv Security Forum. Unfortunately, they do not wish to respond. Now the Russian inform agencies, with the reference to the southern information agency, has reported about intrusion of 2 military machines into the Russian territory. And they have reported that the infantrymen and some military machines had violated the Russian border. We have to bring together the parliamentary factions. In the parliament, you had a sort of event with the prime minister. Let us have the same event with the president. We know what to do in our sphere, and we have more coordination with with the power. When there was a big discussion what to do in Iraq, and at that time there was a closed council, closed discussion. Having heard this breaking news, we see that this is the violation scenario. They are bringing grounds to this is going to be the beginning of the false flag operation. Three statements I would like to make. Minister Ohryzko suggested to review the plan which the parliament has and to approve it. Now we have to make a new plan and to make the list of measures what we should do, preventive sanctions, etc. From which moment we are ready to break diplomatic relations with Russia. From which moment to announce martial law in the pre-border regions. The Russians are now killing Minsk agreements, and that the events, like you mentioned, they are changing the situation rapidly. But the Minsk agreements are not the priority upon which the Russians insist. Minsk agreements are September 5th and September 14th. These are coordinates of the demarcation line, which are reflected in the official documents. If they decide to occupy something, they open the possibility to start invasion from Donetsk and Lugansk region in the depths of Ukraine. In such conditions, when there are huge forces accumulated, any scenario becomes possible. It's quite clear that two armies are now in very close vicinity between each other, and it is very difficult to prevent a strike between them. That's why I'm very much concerned that the Russia has launched a scenario which can become uncontrolled. And one more aspect. We can keep saying that we are ready, but whether we could do anything with the deportation. We were unable to bring people to Ukrainian territory because the Russian Federation had closed the checkpoints. We have to offer something. In the conditions of the big war, we should not think about diplomacy only. And journalists should be involved also. Thank you. I would like to support my colleagues Danylo, Valery, Ivanna. Let us appeal to the representatives of authorities, Mr. Chernev. We would like to ask you as official authorities to think over how to involve the huge potential of those Ukrainians who may share their expertise and how this could be incorporated into the very practical things and steps. While today we are discussing the new geopolitical situation, I suspect that, or I assume that today's authorities do not have such an experience, and this requires consolidation of powers. And I have a big request to you. Please think over again whether you want something from us. What is needed to Ukraine from us as experts, and we should not do this in some long-term future. We should do this immediately. We should go to our American, Polish, British partners with very clear statements. What do we want from ourselves? What do we want from them? How we want to bring Russian Federation to the terms with its modern world. What we keep hearing from our German, from French partners, how to balance all those interests. But what we have heard, that would not help us. And let us take initiative together. Let us prevent a situation when the initiative, any good initiative, will be punished. The initiative should be productive, and we encourage the authorities to the Russian side does not report where that so-called intrusion happened, and they do not indicate where that intrusion and crossing of the border happened. In the morning in Rostov region, after targeting of by the Ukrainian shell, the medical point suffered, and this brings me back to the Soviet-Finnish war back in 1939. And this brings us to the question whether Mr. Putin is going to produce the order about invasion today. I would like to say no to your question, but of course we are not protected against the possibility of such a decision, and we may expect that a new wave of Russian invasion, additionally to all the hybrid attacks, may happen. This brings us back to the fact that the best response to this could be mobilization, internal capacity of our Ukrainian society, and readiness and clear action plan. We feel ourselves a part of Ukrainian society which survived in Maidan and which became volunteers at the Eastern Front in 2014. We have the issues with the clear action plan for the forces beyond military forces. We have to produce this action plan and follow it, beginning with the strategic reserves and ending with the clear instruction to each citizen of Ukraine how to act in each situation. In my bag, I have a brochure prepared by the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center together with the Swedish experts.
Я знаю, але чекайте, зараз вона напрацьовувалася на тому, що, але там, з фахівцями Швеції, правильно, значить, яка перетворилася на реальну брошуру, видану державою.
This is a brochure produced by the state. The issue is that as of today, this brochure is not disseminated in Ukrainian communities. What to do in the case of emergency situation? Why? Because the money were not allocated for the printing of this brochure and for its dissemination. We have produced excellent material, not just to tell to people, do not panic. Here is the action plan, what to do. And the action plan is not disseminated among public. I would like to reflect on what you have just said. What Volodymyr said. I'm open to any cooperation, and I clearly understand that we have coordinate our efforts and we should exchange with our opinions, and that is what we are trying to do today. Of course, I cannot be responsible on behalf of the faction. I can assure you that I myself is ready for coordination. By the way, I would like to say that within that 2 years in power, I've been cooperating with the officers of the foreign ministry of previous convocations, so to say. As for the plans which we should have or should not have, today, the Security and Defense Council and the General Headquarters, they have several scenarios, beginning with the local breakthrough from LDPR and to the large-scale offensive from multiple directions. We weight the possibilities and risks for each scenario, and depending on the scenario, the instructions will come. As for the Verkhovna Rada, during the last several months, we had refreshed the instructions to the MPs what should be done in case of any emergency disruptions in the internet, electricity supply, etc., what members of parliament should do in each this case, and how to respond in each case. They will be published very soon. we back in 2014 and 2015 we had the instructions what to do for the officers, for civil servants, for government institutions, but we do not have them disseminated at the local level, at the level of local communities. This is the issue. Ivanna has mentioned our joint project with our partners, that brochure which we produced about action plan for population. We get no support from other from the state sources. We pay 40% of VAT, by the way, without any governmental support. And when President of Ukraine, Zelensky, stated that we should not increase allocations on the army because we have to build up roads. By the way, I would like to thank you for coming here and for participation. We encourage you to bring together your informations committee and bring it to this platform, to this UCMC. Let us start translating messages to external markets, and let us establish like a military office or get a representative from the headquarters. Talk shows are not the places where the military offices are created. Thank you to the moderator. Thank you, Valery, for invitation. Today we had very good discussion in which we had the following panelists: Ms. Klympush-Tsintsadze, Mr. Chernev, Mr. Ohryzko, Mr. Lubkivskyi, Mr. Chale, and I agree with the suggestion of Mr. Chale to organize every day briefings on the most topical issues and do this in multiple languages. Today, CBS called me and requested for an interview, and I believe that today we have to do our job, each of us, and we will observe how the situation will develop.